All right, welcome everyone to tonight's call. Let's the slides up. There we are. So tonight, if excuse me, I think this is really the cornerstone. This and last week are really the cornerstone of the program, I believe. Kind of programming your mind and dealing with emotional eating. And I always kind of hesitate to call this ending emotional eating and more kind of slash fulfilling yourself emotionally, because I think they're both related, and we want to focus on the solution. The solution is really getting yourself fulfilled with the emotions that are most important to you. So let's get into how to do that. But first, let's talk about this great quote from Vincent van Gogh. Let's not forget that the little emotions are the great captains of our lives, and we obey them without realizing it. And I think this is profound. There are these little emotions from moment to moment throughout the day that really dictate so much of what we do. And so as we begin to recognize them and begin to create structures and systems in order to experience the ones that are most important to us, to me, it's the most profound way to create a change in your life. And it's a unique way to do it. So a couple things I want to go over here. First off, I always like to say your state controls your weight, because the state that you're in, the states that you're in habitually really influence your eating. And literally how your body functions. So we all know, right, when it comes to weight loss and eating well, that you know what to do to a certain degree. We can always learn more nutritionally and all that, but to a certain degree, we all pretty much know what we should and shouldn't eat. But what ends up dictating whether we eat that way or not is our mood, right? You can be motivated, fired up, know exactly what to eat, and something horrible happens, your boss yells at you, you get in a car accident or whatever, and all of a sudden you're feeling terrible, and all that knowledge goes out the window, and we just go in response mode. So being able to deal with our state really is where you can get the most leverage on your behaviors. And at the same time, you're more than your emotions. And so what I mean by that is that, you may sometimes I stuttered here a little bit. People sometimes define themselves by their emotions. Right? You're not depressed. Right? You're not distracted. You're not these things. These are things in moments in time, and you're much bigger than one emotion or a couple emotions. You're a human being with a range of emotions that you can experience, and even the most depressed person can feel better for a moment. And so, if that's possible, then you can feel better for more than one moment, you see, and it becomes this process of building on that. And we can all do it. We can all feel better. We can minimize our negative emotions and increase the emotions we want to feel. And again, we're going to go through a process here. Really what we're talking about, when you get into a certain state, what's happening is you are lighting up neural pathways. Okay. This is very important to understand. So say you get into a sad state. Well, what happens is you light up those sad neural pathways, which means as soon as you start to feel sad, right, there's a physiology of it, you start to light up the neural pathways of the memories of times when you were sad. You start having sad thoughts. Everything becomes sad, okay, when you get into that state. And it's the same thing with positive states. You get into a confident state, and all of a sudden you're remembering times when things were going well. And it's literally like you're a different person depending on which state that you're in. And this is really important because, again, we want to go to the core instead of just assuming that, we feel depressed and we're just going to get ourselves to eat better even when we're depressed. That's a tall order. It's a lot easier, believe it or not, to get yourself to feel better, to get yourself out of depression to, at least a state of calm or peace. And then once you're in that state, it's a lot easier to eat better. Okay. It's not guaranteed, but it's easier. And so we always want to recognize that core base level, and work to make changes there. Imagination's reality, right? Again, we talked a bit about this last week, but, literally when you imagine things in your mind, you start to feel those things. Okay. So again, this imagination's got a real bad rap in our culture. And it's really sad because imagination is one of the most powerful tools you have at your disposal to create change in your life. All right. And so imagination is reality. Literally, when you start to imagine things in your mind, you create a shift in your biochemistry, your neurology, right? Your physiology, all of it starts to change. Okay, so what you're imagining has actual real effects and consequences in your body and in your life. So again, what we want to do is we want to cultivate the desired emotions you want. And this is what becomes a profound shift for a lot of people is so often we're always articulating what we don't want. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be this. What we want to start doing is using our emotional horsepower to get us to feel the things that we want to feel, to create a rich, full emotional life that satisfies and fulfills us. And it's not easy, but it's certainly not impossible. And it's easier than a lot of people think. But the first step is always in talking about what you do want, what you want to feel. And again, we're going to go more into that in a moment. Eating is the number one way to feel good instantly. And I really mean this. And this kind of works both ways. If you're feeling horrible, you could have some ice cream and it instantly can make you feel good. Okay. But when you eat healthy, it's the best way to feel genuinely good. And what I mean by that is if you think of a time in your life when you were in a situation, you made the right food choice, when either you said no to some of the, the desserts or whatever, the overeating, and you said yes to, or you said yes to something healthy. I want you to notice there's a residual impact to that. And if you can string together those successes and appreciate and experience the joy and the excitement and the fun and the confidence and the pride that comes with making the right choices consistently, I'm telling you, that's one of the easiest ways to improve the entire quality of your life and to feel better. And again, it comes down to this truly is the quality of your life. In my mind, is a big part of what defines the quality of your life is the emotions that you experience on a regular basis. Okay, and so it gets right to the core of it. And I don't see this talked about a whole lot. Right? We know when we don't feel well, and we wish we felt a certain way, but a lot of times there's no real structures for how can we feel the things that we want to feel. And what you'll find, and we all know this, right, that money doesn't define happiness, right? Weight doesn't define happiness, right? There's other things that are more important, these superficial things that we get so focused on. And so tonight we're going to talk about, excuse me, a strategy for creating the emotions we want to feel, the kind of an inside out approach, a bottom up approach. So instead of trying to get things externally, thinking that they're going to make us feel a certain way, we are going to learn how to manifest and cultivate emotions that we truly want to feel. And we don't need to be a millionaire. We don't need to lose 100 pounds. Okay. We want to feel good now so we can use those emotions to help us achieve our goals. So let's talk a little bit about emotional mastery here. Basically the simplest way to understand your behaviors is that basically at any moment in time with any situation, we're moving away from pain and moving toward pleasure. Okay. This is just hardwired into us that we don't want pain and we want to move pleasure. Between the two, typically in the moment, we will do more to avoid pain. Okay. So when we're given this choice, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. Okay. When we have that momentary choice there. But on a big scale, moment to moment throughout the days, and as the days turn into weeks and months and years, we are pleasure seeking machines. Okay. And so we're going to move towards pleasure ultimately. Okay. That's ultimately what we're going to do. So that's a big part here. We're going to get more into that in a moment. Again, we want to focus on the emotions you do want to feel. I can't tell you just alone. If you take nothing else out of this, but this right here, when you decide what emotions you want to feel, and again, I'm going to show you the menu in a moment. When you start picking the emotions you want to feel, this is not rocket science. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to take you through a process where you can feel them instantly right now. Okay. So you can literally feel emotions right now at this moment that you want to feel. But the other thing is when you recognize that, I want to feel happier in my life. As you set that as a goal and an intention, it's really not too difficult to feel happier in your life. Okay. So as we begin to define how we want to feel, that alone is a huge, huge difference because we all humans have a negativity bias and we tend to experience the emotions we experience just on a kind of autopilot, assume that we're just feeling them, and then define it as I don't want to feel this way. And that's about as far as we take it. We got to take that extra step. How do you want to feel? It's the magic question. Association and disassociation. Again, I'm going to take you through a process in a moment that'll kind of let you experience this process. But basically, we can associate or disassociate into different feelings. We can do it physically, we can do it mentally. All right. And so I don't want to get too much into it now because we're going to actually get into it in a moment. But basically, let me talk about it here. What a lot of emotional eating comes down to, and this is a very important point I'm about to make, that you need to start to recognize the difference between genuine emotions that you feel and associated emotions. Okay. Now, associated emotions, if we refer back to last week and we talk about Pavlov's dogs, where they associate the bell to the food, right? They link them together. The same things happen to humans, but it's happened with food. And every single advertisement you see for food is basically like a Pavlov's dogs experiment, where it is linking their food to some emotional feeling. That's every single ad you're seeing. And so what ends up happening, in addition to advertisement marketing, there's also your real life, right? I used the example last week of the birthday cake, where it's like, maybe if you're growing up and you're lucky to have birthday cakes and parties, then you got that birthday cake, you're the center of the attention that day, you're getting gifts, love, all this great stuff, and you associate it to the cake. 40 years later, you're by yourself and you're feeling lonely. Well, maybe I'll have a piece of cake. I don't know why it makes me feel better. It just does. Right? So it becomes this associated emotion to that thing. Well, if we look at one of the common things that drives a lot of people's food behavior, right? Again, one of the big habits people have is eating at night. And so you work hard all day, you go home, and the eating is your reward. It's pleasure, it's entertainment, it's fun, it's love, it's companionship. Okay. And again, you're not doing this consciously, but unconsciously, you're associating all these emotions and feelings to that behavior and to that food. But it's not real. It's not real. It's not entertainment in the sense of, whatever real entertainment may be to you, going to a concert, going to a dance, hanging out with friends. You know what I mean? Doing things that genuinely fulfill you. Because at the end of the day, just like Pavlov's dogs, that ringing bell makes the dog salivate and makes them think food's coming, but it's not actually food. And if the food never comes, the dogs starve. And a lot of people, this is a term I like to use for this, a lot of people have gotten themselves emotionally malnourished because they're relying on associated emotions to fulfill themselves emotionally. And we need to start recognizing the difference between genuine emotions and the very low level associated emotion fulfillment we get out of these different emotional eating behaviors we have. Okay. It's a real beginning of it. And so again, you want to start craving genuine emotional fulfillment. So again, we're going to go through a process where we start to identify what emotions are you getting, out of these habits you have. And when you can identify them, it's a two-part process. A, you start to recognize how that's not really satisfying you. And the other hand is, what would it feel like in your life if you were genuinely getting those emotional needs met? And again, that's a big game changer. And then once we figure out what the emotions you truly want, again, that becomes the process. The process stops being, I don't want to feel this way, and it starts becoming, how can I feel more of this? This is what I really want. And this is the magic question. And again, this applies to this can happen in all areas of our lives. It's not even just food. It really is a lot of work. Just things sometimes we're kind of on autopilot thinking it's what we want to do, but it's not really making us feel good. And the test for it is always kind of just judging, how do you feel on a day-to-day basis? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling fulfilled? Or are you feeling stressed, depressed, anxious? Okay, that's how you can tell where you're falling, with this whole process. So your state, at any moment in time, we're always in a state. It changes moment to moment. Okay. But basically, it's how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. Right. And again, we talked about the neural pathways that are lit up. So again, it's how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's not just what's going on in your body. Well, that's how you kind of feel. It's also literally the thoughts you're thinking. And so, again, we're going to work on how to shift our state. It affects your biochemistry. So the point I want to make is this is your state. Again, sometimes we tend to almost think of feelings as these non-physical things, like, oh, I'm feeling sad. And we don't recognize the physical component to it. But it's important to understand that you are a physical being, a biological being. And if you feel sad, there's a biology to that. There's a biochemistry to that. If you feel happy, right, there's a different biochemistry to that. And so we want to recognize the physical, biological grounding of your feelings and your thoughts. Okay. Because sometimes I think it's a trap where people think they think of their feelings and their thoughts as these non-physical things that they can just change. And it's not really that way. You are a physical being. So we want to recognize this part. Your state affects the hormones your body's producing. You get anxious and stressed and overwhelmed, your body starts producing more cortisol, more adrenaline, right? And all these things make it harder to lose weight. It makes it harder to eat well. Okay. So again, this is a holistic approach to really changing this in a very profound way. The thoughts you're having, right? The memories that you're remembering, are all influenced by your state. The habits you're activating, right? You know this, right? Haven't you gotten to a state where you're just like, again, you just feel like you get in a fight with your significant other, your boss screams at you, right? You almost get a car accident, someone else runs you off the road. So again, as soon as you get into these really peak kind of negative states, it's like it activates certain habits. It's just easier. Oh, that's it. I'm going to go grab a drink, or I'm going to forget I'm going to go eat pizza. So understand that it's not. I want you to understand the different mechanisms that are instigating these processes. Okay, because the more you can understand them, the more you can change them. And finally, your energy level, your mood, and your spirit. So all of these things are influenced by your state. Where you are at any mental time, any moment in time, where you are physiologically and psychologically. So we talked a little bit about last week about, typically people look at the right side of the screen there, the right of the blue arrow, and that they want to lose weight. They focus on the eating and the exercising. And again, they look for what to do, this very conscious approach. Tell me what to eat, tell me how to work out, and I'll use my willpower and get myself to do it. And that basically defines most people's approach to losing weight. But if you've tried it even once, you realize that all that knowledge was great until all of a sudden you got into a negative state, right? And so your state is really the missing piece. And so we got to start focusing here. If you're going to create new changes, you've got to start focusing on your state. Because if you're typically tired, angry, depressed, lonely, or bored, it's going to be very difficult for you to get yourself to institute the eating and exercising you need to do to lose the weight. Right? You've got to turn it into happy, content, grateful, healthy, energized, and we're going to go through other things. It doesn't have to be those things, but we need to create a more conducive state in order for you to act the way that you want to and have to act to lose the weight. Okay, so we got to go a level deeper here. So what we've talked about habits, and so I want to go a little bit deeper into it. And so we were talking about there's a cue, right? There's some kind of cue. Typically it's a location, time, emotional state, or other people. There's a routine or a habit that you put in place, and then there's the reward. And so we're going to dissect this a bit because a lot of this stuff is very unconscious, and it's something it's really under our awareness that we're not aware of. So the first process is just becoming aware of it. Okay, that's the key thing. And so we want to start recognizing what the cues are, right? Specifically, the emotional states that drive you into bad routines and bad habits. And by the way, it can be both ways. You can also recognize the emotional states that move you into positive habits and routines. Okay, so it works both ways. And then we want to start to recognize very clearly what is the emotional reward that we're looking for? Because this is the secret that is going to drive you to get the body you want, is being able to become very, very clear on the emotional reasons that you want to eat better and lose weight. Okay, this is really, really important. So what are we seeking from food? Okay, this is what we want to start looking at food for. We want to redefine this. You have to redefine this because we're constantly being conditioned in the opposite way to link all these pleasurable things to foods that don't support us. Okay, so we need to redefine why we want to eat certain foods. And that alone is going to transform the way that you're eating. So what are you seeking from foods, right? Relief, happiness, excitement, confidence. These are all things you can get. Again, it works both ways. But we want to know what we want to get from the food so that we're clearly creating food choices for us that let us feel these things. Now, if you look at some of the bad food habits you have and some of the emotional eating, what are you seeking from that food? Right? So think about some of the emotional eating you've done or do, and think about when it's happening. Right? So again, I'll just stick with the kind of the classic one of someone gets home from work and they're wiped out, they're tired, right? They've given everything they got at work all day. And so the food becomes, relaxation, comfort, right? It becomes, what else is on there? Reward, right? A feeling of success because they worked hard all day and this is, what they deserve, right? So again, we want to understand that at the end of every behavior we have, there's some positive intention and it's usually emotional, right? So again, when anytime we're emotionally eating, there's the aspect of what we're seeking from the food, like what we're looking for. But then even more importantly is what's underneath here. What are you avoiding with the food? Right. And this is where we can really get into the emotional eating. And typically this is the bigger thing. Now, clearly, don't take offense to this, but sometimes food can be used just like drugs. And so people always say, yeah, but I never have to do drugs. I always got to eat. You do, but it's very helpful to start to appreciate your behavior, your eating behaviors, and to start to recognize which eating behaviors are healthy and proper and which eating behaviors are not. And literally, which eating behaviors are kind of like I'm using food like a drug here. Okay, which is another way to say when you're avoiding things with the food, right? And so again, this may seem easier to identify, but you get home from work all day, you don't really like the job, you get in a fight with your boss, maybe feeling sad, maybe feeling disappointed, maybe feeling out of control. I mean, it can feel like all of them. But one of the easiest ways to distract yourself from those feelings is, but again, just like reason I bring up the drug thing, exactly like drugs, but we understand when we talk about if someone is using, drugs, hard drugs or alcohol or even smoking, if you're a non-smoker, a non-drinker, or non-drug user, you have a concept of how to perceive those things, right? So you can understand, you can appreciate, oh, that person, they're in a lot of pain, so they're turning to alcohol, right? And we have a certain way of understanding that. And we said, they really shouldn't do that. It's not the healthiest thing for them. They should go talk to someone. They should, understand, find better ways to deal with that, right? So again, we have a kind of a deep understanding of how to explain that when it comes to those things. But a lot of times with food, we don't really think of it that way. And sometimes it can be very helpful. It'll give you some insights that you may not otherwise get. So, again, if you're feeling these things regularly in the bottom and you want to avoid feeling them, you want to distract yourself from it or numb yourself from it for a little while, or just take a little break, sometimes that can be a core reason, for the emotional eating. Okay. But again, the point becomes, I just want to point this out one more time. It doesn't resolve the problem. It exacerbates it. It makes it worse. Because you start stringing that together, things in life aren't going well for a couple weeks, couple months, couple years, and you're turning to food every time. Now all of a sudden, you don't feel well, you're tired, you're, heavier, you don't feel good about your body, you feel out of control, and it just makes all of this stuff worse, and it never deals with the problem. And we live in a society that trains us to deal with symptoms and not deal with the problem. And I'm going to tell you right now, I believe one of the core problems of all of the emotional eating comes down to not having better strategies to deal with the negative emotions that you have and to create the positive emotional fulfillment that you truly want. And so again, the first step is just appreciating and recognizing this, becoming aware of it. The next part of the process, which can last a long time, is figuring out ways to feel the emotions that you truly want to feel. Okay. So, let's just talk a little bit about unresourceful states. Okay. So what I mean is if you're in these states regularly, then you know how you eat when you feel these ways. Right. And so I want you to recognize this aspect of it. Because again, you're the same person with the same knowledge of what you should and shouldn't eat. But I'm going to make the idea here, throw this idea out that maybe what's dictating what you're eating more than your knowledge, your nutrition knowledge, is the fact that you feel these things. And when you feel these ways, you just say, screw it. I don't care. I don't care what I eat. When you're feeling miserable, when you're feeling confused, impatient, and depressed, you just don't care. Okay. So again, this is the core reason, these are the core things of what's driving our behavior. So we got to change them. We got to learn how to change them. All right. And so what we want to do, again, we get to this here, the resourceful states. Now, again, there's Richard Bailey used to say this, the guy who created NLP, that multiple personalities is the next evolutionary step. And I think what he meant by that is that we're all multiple personalities, aren't we? Right? Again, if I go back to that previous, when you're feeling this way, any number of these, any one of these emotions here, one of these states, you're a much different version of yourself than you are when you're feeling these emotions. Same person, but you can be different persons, right? You're a different person with each state here. So it's up to us to start figuring out ways that we can start feeling these more. Okay, this is the core of it. So never mind even just beyond weight loss and an emotional eating part of it. This gets to the core of the whole quality of your life, is being able to feel these emotions more. And some are harder to feel than others, okay, without question. But they're all within your grasp, without question. And one other thing I just want to mention is feeling, let me pick a different one, feeling energized. Okay, that's a good one, right? Because I know a lot of people feel tired. So feeling energized, here's the thing I want to make a point of. There's scales here, okay? So this isn't all or nothing. You don't have to just feel energized at a level 10, right? Energized is a level 1 to 10. And feeling an energized 1 is 1,000 times better than feeling misery 4. Okay? It doesn't have to be energized on a level 10. It doesn't have to be you're the most friendly person on the planet. It doesn't have to be that. Just a little bit. A little bit. Because you're always, states are binary. You're in one or you're in the other. You're not going to be in two states at the same time. Short of doing it kind of a specific intervention NLP technique, which is, there's a thing called collapsing anchors, which kind of, it connects these states, and it's a real weird experience. But short of that, you're in at least one state. You're not going to be smiling and depressed at the same time. Not genuinely smiling and not genuinely depressed. It's one or the other. So what I'm saying to you is that don't get caught up on being the most effective, the most grateful, the most happy, the most excitement. It doesn't have to be the max level. Because I'm telling you, even just a minimum level of it, just appreciate that. And then once you feel that, then you can work to increase it. Okay, but don't get yourself caught in a trap of trying to get the maximum level of these things. Okay, start with a simple one because they change everything. So I want to talk about a state elicitation technique. So I'll pick one for you. I'm just going to go with let's just do grateful. I love grateful. It's one of those master emotions. And I want to take you through the state elicitation technique because this is where it's at, in my opinion. And it serves two purposes. I just want to show you this. You can feel any emotion at any time. I could take you through either of those lists, the good or the bad one, and I could bring you through every single one of those emotions so that you feel them. Okay? You can do that to yourself at any moment in time, and you do it to yourself. The thing is, you've gotten so good at it, you don't even realize when you're doing it. You just realize you just feel one of the moods. Right? And typically, we notice it on the negative side of things. But we can feel any emotion, good or bad, that we want to feel. And so this is a simple technique to do that. And again, I want to take you through it so you can do it. But I also want you in the back of your mind and pay attention to when you're doing this to yourself just naturally, right? Because you're gonna find yourself. So think of an emotion you like to feel. We'll go with grateful. And you want to remember a memory when you felt that emotion. And so one thing we'll start with here is get yourself in the physiology, right? So we start with the physiology of it, your posture. So align your body. If you felt grateful, right? Just imagine how you would hold your body. Check your posture, your muscle tension, right? So grateful is probably kind of right in the middle. You're not really tense. You're not really loose. Right? Probably right in the middle. It might be different for you. If it is, that's fine. And then we check the breathing, right? If you felt really grateful, how would you breathe? How would you hold yourself? I'm kind of shifting myself right now because where I was sitting wasn't doing it. Okay. So I get the physiology of some gratefulness here, some gratitude. And now remember a time when you felt really grateful. Okay. Just think of a time. Now, specifically, it doesn't have to be that year when you were really grateful. It's a moment in time. Okay. We just want a peak experience. So, think of that memory, right? And then you want to play that memory through in your mind. And so, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking, just so I can take it through you easier. I'm thinking the first one came to my mind, and that's how you want to do it. The first thing that just pops in your head. Doesn't have to be the number 10 experience of gratitude. It could be literally anywhere on the scale, 1 to 10. First thing that pops in your head. Well, I remember my son was born. That was really cool. And so what you want to do is you want to remember the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic details. Okay, so basically we're just remembering the movie, right? A movie's visual and auditory, and the feelings come with it. So you do this with your eyes closed because it frees up a lot of brain capacity. And you go in and you remember that memory as if you were watching a movie, and you're looking up at it. And so again, the middle of the movie is the emotion, and you kind of play that movie through, and you remember all the little details. Is it day or night? Were you inside or outside? Right? Where were you? Who'd you see? And then you bring through the auditory things, any sounds you remember hearing. Right? It could be silence is also an auditory cue. So if there's a silence, music, people talking, birds flying, whatever sounds you remember in that memory. And then you go into the kinesthetics of it, the remembered kinesthetics. So you remember what that situation felt like. Right? What did it feel like in that memory? And so I remember one specific one. I remember my son, he'd just been born. He grabbed my finger with his hand. And I remember that, right? So that's the kinesthetics of that. And then the feelings that went along with that, right? Just like, oh, this is awesome. And now I bring it back into now, right? So I feel that gratitude in my body now. And I could feel it. I could feel in different parts of my body. And my body feels warmer. My shoulders are dropped. I'm breathing deeper. My face is relaxed. And now I kind of play it through one more time. Okay, so play that movie through one more time, whatever your movie is. And you may remember different details now. Right? Different visual things you saw, things you heard, different feelings. There might be some smells or tastes. If those pop in there, you can remember those as well. And then bring it back to the feeling now. Bringing that feeling back into your body. Okay. And so where do you feel it in your body? How do you describe it? So there's the physiology of it. I'm breathing a certain way. I'm holding myself a certain way. I get that memory clear in my mind. And now there's also a level of describing it where it's like, there's almost like this gooey, glowing feeling in me. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't matter. So that's how I describe it. Okay. And you can describe it any way you want. But the more you do this, right? And so you do this with one memory. You could cycle through again if you wanted to. But then what you could do, if we stuck with gratitude, is you could think of, okay, what's another time I felt gratitude? Right? So, oh, there was that time when, I don't know, I got to see my grandmother one last time, or whatever it may be. And so you remember that thing. You do the same thing. You make a movie of it, kind of remember it, bring yourself through it, remember the visual details, audio details, and the kinesthetic details, and then bring those feelings into your body. And this begins to create that feeling in your body that you want. And it trains your body. So again, I said this last week. I always get such a bone to pick with people that say, oh, I'm faking it till I make it. You're not faking anything. By feeling and tapping into these, by using your imagination and tapping into these states, you're actually feeling them now. And it changes how you feel, it changes how your body's functioning, and it changes how you think. Okay, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Because this is what you're doing with negative things. But the thing is, you're so good at it, you're just doing it automatically. You're not taking yourself through the steps. Let me give you an example. You ever get an argument with someone you're close to, and it's kind of like the same argument all the time? And as soon as you have that argument, you start remembering all the crappy things they said or did to you in the past, right? The same memories pop up. You see? So again, we light up these neural pathways and they connect us to the same thoughts. So when you're feeling stuck or trapped within your thinking, one of the easiest ways to change it is to practice the state elicitation technique and to practice feeling different emotions. I mean, I did this for a year or two. I remember I would pick a different emotion every week and I would just work on feeling it. And it's like I became fluent in them until the point where it's like you could throw any emotion at me. And again, I've kind of done this process. So it's like, again, you're kind of imagining what it feels like. You're remembering a time when you felt something like that. And then you're revivifying that memory, bringing that feeling into your body, running through it again. You know what I mean? And you do that for a week with each emotion. You get good with the emotions that you want to get good at with. And you get good at just being able to change and shift how you feel. Because there's not a lot of truth to how you feel. Just because you're in a situation or someone says something to you or something happens to you, it doesn't mean you have to react in a set way. Okay. You can react the way you want to a lot of times, you know? So again, this is such a great thing to practice. And the more you start to feel genuine, natural emotions and you remember, all these wonderful times when you felt all these great emotions, you start to believe that you can feel them. It starts to change your self-identity and who you think of yourself as. Okay. So it's such a great technique that I can't recommend you doing it enough to them. So unresourceful emotional patterns and the antidote to them. Okay. Your moods, they run in patterns outside of your awareness. Okay. And as you start paying attention to your moods, and again, it kind of goes this way. That's why I always say structure is number one, the most important thing for you to lose weight and keep it off. You need structure because the structure is going to make you aware of your unconscious patterns. Without the structure, your conscious mind can't keep up with all the things you're doing. And you get distracted and you get lost in it. So you need to have structure. You need to eat a certain way, kind of Monday through Friday. You can eat differently on the weekends, but you need to start structurizing it. Doesn't mean you have to eat the same thing, by the way, but you need to eat the same types of things and the same meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Let me be specific. You could have 5 different breakfasts. It doesn't matter, but the breakfasts have to be within your ranges. Okay. The same thing with the lunch and same thing with the dinners, but you need to start having structure. And when you do, you start to become aware of your patterns. You start to recognize that on Wednesdays, you start to run out of gas and you start eating bad. And that runs all the way through until Sunday. Again, I'm just making that up, but you need to start becoming aware of your moods and the patterns that they run in. Because once you become aware of the patterns of your moods, you start to become aware of the cues that are triggering them. Right? The times of day, weeks, months, the people that do it, the locations, the emotional states. And once you become aware of them, then you can work to change them. But the first step literally is becoming aware of them. So with your emotional eating patterns, what are the triggers? Right? What is going on? You're not doing these things at all times. Okay. I got to make that clear. I can't tell you how many people are just like, oh, I always eat bad. My eating's bad all the time. It's not. You're not eating 24 hours a day. Right. And if you keep telling yourself that, you're doing yourself a disservice because there's a specific pattern to them. And the more you can understand the pattern, the more control you have over it. So what are the triggers? What are the cues that are going on with your emotional eating patterns? Right? Recognize them. It could be a combination of those things, by the way. It could be places, people, situations, and time. It could be literally all 4 of them. But the more you understand them, the more you can prepare for them. What mood do they put you in? Right? What is again, as we talked earlier, what is the state that you get in that kind of leads you to say, forget, I don't care what I eat? We want to recognize that. How do you usually act when you feel that way? Right? So again, you want to notice this stuff. What resourceful state would you like to feel instead? Now, I don't ask this question lightly, right? But I want you to really think about this because I would almost guarantee that you have not. I'm sure you have, you may recognize your emotional eating pattern. You may recognize what you do. You may realize why you do it, right? The person, place, time, why you do it. But then usually what people do is they say, I wish I wouldn't do that. And so they just focus on the external behavior. But I'm telling you, you need to go deeper with this because it's the emotional state that's driving the behavior. So if you just say to yourself, I get home at night, I'm wiped out and tired. I see my teenage daughter's there and she, we've been fighting. She gets me mad. And, I'm wiped out. I sit on my sofa and I start eating ice cream. Right? I'm just wiped out. I'm tired. I'm irritated. Okay. And so what would you like to do? I'd like to not eat the ice cream. That's not going to do anything. Okay. Because the ice cream's not the problem. The ice cream's a symptom of the problem. The problem is how you feel. Right? The problem is that you feel tired, irritated, worn out. Okay. So what would you like to feel instead? Oh, I'd like to feel all energized, Jim. That's what I'd like to feel. I'd like to feel alive and feel really good. Yeah, people sarcastic sometimes. So, okay, well, what would help you do that? I could go to bed. That's interesting. What would happen if you went to bed for the next 4 nights at that time and slept, got 3 more hours of sleep for the next couple nights? I'd wake up feeling refreshed and I'd feel good and I'd feel alive. I'd be able to better deal with my people around me and the rest. So you know what I mean? Like again, I don't ask this sarcastically, and you can't either. What resourceful state do you want to feel in those situations? That's the first step, right? And then what do you need to do to feel them? That's the next step. Okay, but again, you know how to do it. And so if you could feel that way, right? How would you act if you felt that way, right? So again, say you feel tired when you get home, right? And then you go and eat. So you don't want to feel tired. How would you like to feel? I like to feel energized. I like to, get some energy back. Okay. What could you do to do that? I could take a nap. Okay. I could drink some water. I could go for a walk. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's different strokes for different folks. Different things impact people differently. But say you did that. Say you took a nap and you woke up and you felt refreshed. Took a 26-minute nap, woke up refreshed, feeling better, break from your day. If you felt that way, how would you act? Oh, now I'd have some energy and I would do other things. Super. That's the goal. Now I'm simplifying this a little bit, obviously, but you get the basic idea to it. Okay. And that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to feel out of control with you emotionally, like there's nothing you can do, because there absolutely is. You just need to go a step deeper to understand what's driving this. Okay. And if you do this, I think you'll uncover a lot. So we talked about your state. I just want to dissect it a little bit more. So basically the physiology, at any moment in time, your state is a combination of your physiology and your psychology. And so the physiology is your posture, relaxation, muscle relaxation, tension levels. Ultimately, your breathing is kind of like the speedometer of your car. It's the most important gauge. And then I write energy and vibe in quotes there, because as I was saying, this kind of gooey, glowy warmth, that doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it means something to me. And so a lot of times when you describe your quote energy vibe, it's very kind of metaphorical. It doesn't have to be specific. You don't even have to tell anyone. It just has to mean something it means something to you. So that when you're saying, oh, I want to feel grateful. Oh, okay, well, I just did that. So I relax. I breathe a little differently. I feel this warm, gooey kind of warmth in my chest, and it's kind of floating out to my shoulders, my arms. That helps me, right? Your unconscious mind understands imagination. So gooey, glowy warmth means something to your unconscious mind. Okay, so don't be afraid to come up with some goofy term that means something to you. And the psychology is, right, the memories, thoughts, imagination, and fantasies, and the internal dialogue. So as we brought ourselves through that grateful exercise, again, you're deepening the memory. And so if you think of gratitude right now, that memory pipe pops up because you just reinforced it. You strengthen that connection. When you're feeling grateful, your thoughts are different. You'll put you in this exact same situation when you're grateful as opposed to when you're feeling like the world's against you. You're going to have completely different thoughts. So it's not the situation that's different, it's you. And that's the way it is in life. It's your thoughts, and it's you that can be different. And that's where you have the most leverage. That's where you have the most control. More than you have the ability to change the whole situation. You can change how you're thinking about it. Imagination and fantasies, the way you're thinking about it. And then the internal dialogue, the way you're speaking to yourself. And so again, if you're feeling really a lot of gratitude, really grateful for things, as opposed to when you're feeling like everything's unfair and the world's against you, you have a much different internal dialogue, how you're speaking to yourself. Okay. So let's kind of just bring this through feeling defeated, right? We'll keep with this one. So what I want you to do is play along with this for a second. So if you were feeling defeated, right, what would your physiology be? Right. So I got kind of some typical things, but kind of a hunched over, right? Put yourself, let's play around with it. Right. And again, you may have a tense stomach, jaw, shoulders, jaw, and chest. It might be completely slack. Again, so I'm not saying that doesn't have to be your recipe, but feeling defeated, right? Shallow breathing, this kind of defeated energy, this slow moving, kind of empty energy, right? The psychology, you're remembering your failures, right? You think about all the problems that you have, imagining the worst case scenarios, beating yourself up. Why you always do this? You got yourself in this mess. It's your fault. This is how it goes. This is the state. Does this not feel right? Did we not just take these ingredients and cook ourselves up some defeated state here? It feels this way. I'm feeling it right now. And even the internal dialogue is kind of, why'd you do that? It's a jerk, bad person. Okay? So I got all this stuff. And so let's flip it for a second though. Okay. Just shake that off. Right. Now let's just go practice feeling confident for a second. So let's take the physiology, stand or sit tall. Right? Relax your stomach, chest, shoulders, and jaw. Now, again, that tension level, right? Tension is a spectrum, right? So it's probably like somewhere in the middle, right? You're feeling there's some energy in your body, but it's not tense, right? You're breathing deeper, right? Feel that confidence in your body. Hold yourself the way you would if you were really confident, right? This calm, confident energy. I feel like this kind of faster moving, lighter energy flowing through my body, right? The psychology, remembering successes that I've had, thinking about the solutions to my problems, imagining myself succeeding, right? Supporting yourself with your internal dialogue, kind of supporting it. You can do it. We'll figure this out. We got it. Right? You can even make this even more, right? Think of times when you felt confident. Again, it doesn't have to be the most confident. Just a time in your life you felt confident. Right? Notice how you hold yourself. Notice the energy in your body. Notice how you feel. Okay, so think about this feeling, and I hope you're doing this with me, because this is something we're logic is logic. Logic hasn't gotten you the results you want. Now we're into the unconscious mind. We're using our imagination to feel something. And so I hope you're going through this process, because you'll feel it. You can feel it instantly. If you want to shortcut it, just imagine you're confident. You hold yourself differently. And now let's go back again, right? Go back to feeling defeated, right? The physiology, hunched over, right? Head down, eyes down. I had to move my microphone, move my head, let that energy go. Remember the past failures. We're not worthy. Right? So again, you can see how easily you can kind of shift these back and forth. So when you're feeling bad, again, it's recognizing the process, recognizing when you're doing this emotional eating, and starting to recognize the state you're putting yourself in. And you're going to find, oh, well, I'm feeling wiped out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired. Well, then go into those states and notice that when you're feeling tired and overwhelmed and all the rest of it, this is what you're doing. You're cooking it up like a recipe. Right? Physiologically, you're adding all those things together, because it's very difficult to feel overwhelmed and tired and exhausted with your shoulders up, standing up straight. Grab a drink of water, breathe, take a deep breath, hold your head up straight, look forward, right? Look up. Start remembering times when you had a lot of energy and you were feeling good, right? It changes how you feel. So let's kind of go through this with confidence, because confidence is a huge emotion, real important to have. Think of a time when you felt confident, or think of something you have confidently know you can do. And what I mean, by the way, of how it can be so simple, is you can even reflect on something like writing. Right? Now, again, you take it for granted. You don't think about it much now, but think about how long it took you to learn how to write with your hand, right? It took years, but now you do it like you're a master at it, right? So it literally could be something that's tying your shoes. Again, it was hard. Now you know how to do it, and you have complete confidence that you can do it. Okay, that's what we're looking for, is just a sense of confidence. It doesn't have to be confidence that you're going to climb Mount Everest. It doesn't have to be some confidence that you don't believe in. You have to believe it. So think of a time you felt confident, or something that you can confidently know you can do. Okay. And again, let's go into the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic details. Right? So no matter what it is that you're thinking about, and again, don't worry, you can do this with multiple things. So this isn't a test, a one-time test to see if you got it right, just anything. Let me think of something for a second so I can go along with you. All right, cool. So, what I want you to do is, you know what I remember, by the way, I want to point this out. I remember I'm a pretty good painter, like painting the house. You know what I mean? Like I've painted a lot of houses inside in my life, not professionally, but just on my own. So I'm real confident that I can do it and not make a mess and make everything look good. So I mean, I'm not going to something crazier. Okay. So now remember visual, auditory, and kinesthetic details of a time when you got to experience that confidence. Okay? So think about it. Play that movie through in your mind. Okay, so remember, were you inside, outside, right? What was going on? Who was there? Who wasn't there? Where you were? Day, night. Okay, and then the auditory stuff, right? What sound you remember hearing? Right? Any smells or tastes? And then the kinesthetics, right? How it felt to be confident in that situation. How'd you hold yourself? How are you breathing? How are you moving? Right? And now bring all those feelings into your body now. Right? You feel that confidence now. You might puff your chest up a little more. You might, again, as you bring that feeling into your body, you might shift your body a little bit. That's fine. And I'll cycle through that memory one more time. Right? Feel yourself in that situation. Right? See what you remember seeing. Any auditory sound you remember hearing. Smells or tastes. And then the feelings that you had as you were in that situation. How you had yourself, how you spoke, if you were speaking, how you moved, all these little subtle things. Let your unconscious mind remember them. And now bring those feelings into your body now. Okay? Now, if you wanted to go deeper with it, again, you could repeat this with another memory, another time you felt confident. Okay, so again, what I want you to do is I want you to just have fun with it. Like we're kind of learning it here, so we're going through a little slowly. This really doesn't take much more than 30 seconds to a minute to just do it. It's a great thing. You could do it before you go to bed at night. You could do it when you wake up in the morning. It's reconnecting to that feeling. It's remembering that feeling. It's just like working out a muscle. If you want to build up your biceps, you go and do curls, right? You build up those muscles. It's no different. These feelings are just like muscles. They're neural pathways. And so as you remind yourself what they feel like, the ingredients of them, and as you practice it more, it starts to become second nature. And you can bring those feelings into your life. And you want to bring the feelings in that are going to support you the most, okay, in achieving what it is that you want. All right. So what I want to do is I want to take one step further. So we just elicited the state, okay, and so now I want to show you how to program yourself to feel that in real life. Okay, so this is how this is kind of how we put it all together here. And so now we connect to the state of confidence, right? So you're more familiar with what confidence feels like now, right? So if you just did that last example, notice it's easier for you to feel confident because you just practiced it. You just worked that muscle out. You're more connected to it. You understand it more. So create that state of confidence. What shifts did you make? For me, I just noticed it's this weird, and again, the more you get into it, it's very subtle sometimes. But for me, it's like this little subtle shift just to look at my chest. I just kind of hold myself up a little bit more. My shoulders a little more relaxed. And I feel myself breathing kind of fuller. Okay. So you connect to your state of confidence, right? Physiologically hold yourself that way. Speak to yourself in a confident tone. Okay. Again, you be aware of how that confident you thinks, feels, perceives, and acts. So that was another thing I was thinking, just real subtle here. I was imagining myself, literally, I was imagining myself a couple weeks ago, I was painting just trim in my house. And, I just decided to do it. It wasn't a big deal because, again, I don't need drop cloths on the rest. I know how to do it, but I was thinking about the way I was moving. You know what I mean? Like I was just kind of moving with confidence. My hand was moving smoothly, and it was just making everything look kind of nice. And it was cool. There's a lot of energy there. So that's, again, it's just a little subtle thing. It may not be physiological for you. It may not be a movement thing for you, right? But a lot of times there's one little thing like, oh, that was cool. Or I said that to myself, or I felt that, or I thought that. You want to bring that in. And so what we want to do now, the programming part, is bringing that feeling into situations that are challenging. Okay, so maybe, for example, you have some meeting with your boss, right? And instead of feeling worried about it, you want to feel confident. Again, how do you want to feel, right? And so, meeting with your boss, and you're already imagining it, by the way. So why not imagine that meeting as your confident version of you? Right? See what that feels like. See how you speak, act, and respond when you're that version of yourself. Okay. And you can do that. That's the point of this process here. But let's just keep it with the food. Say you're going to a restaurant, right? And let's just say, for example, that confidence would help you. Now, again, you can put any emotion in here you want. You understand? It's different for different people. So you go back to that menu of positive, resourceful emotions and states, and you pick the ones that are most appealing to you in challenging situations. Okay. And so you think of some challenging situations that are going to come up. And those challenging situations, I want you to understand that you already think of them sort of like a movie, right? Typically, unless you're going to some completely new situation you've never been in. But for most of us, the challenging situations are things we've been in. And so you want to think of, well, let's just say you're going to a restaurant and you want to eat well. So you would imagine going into that restaurant. You can imagine yourself even kind of driving to that restaurant, and you're driving there as that confident version of you, right? You're feeling strong, you're feeling secure. You know what you want to do. You know how you want to act, and you believe you can do it. And so you play this movie through as this ideal you. You feel yourself getting out of the car, walking into the restaurant, feeling strong, feeling confident, feeling in control. Feel yourself sitting down, right? Imagine yourself looking at the menu, ordering the food that you want. And see yourself eating and responding and thinking and acting exactly the way that you would like to. Right. And again, it all comes from this source of confidence. Okay. And as you imagine this movie, right, you kind of play it through, Notice how easy it is to act the way that you want to when you're feeling that way. Okay, this is the goal. Because again, we're always doing this one way or the other. Typically what's happening though is people are, oh, I'm going to that restaurant. I'm going to that Italian place. Oh God, I always overeat there. And I've been doing so good. And oh man, I'm going to blow it. I don't know what to do. Oh man, I always do this. I always do it. And I'll go in there and I'm doing so well. And then I just blow the whole thing. Right? Does this sound familiar at all? So we don't want to be doing that. Okay, that's setting us up for failure. Instead, we want to program ourselves for success, which doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be successful, by the way. But I guarantee you, if you imagine yourself going to that restaurant, you're like, okay, what would a confident version of me, what would the confident me go to that restaurant and do? And you play that through a couple times, and then you go to the restaurant, and maybe you still overate, but I promise you something will have been better. Maybe you would have drank more water. Maybe you didn't eat as much as you normally did. Maybe you got a healthier choice. Maybe you didn't get dessert. Okay, so again, it doesn't have to be, it's not perfection. This isn't about instant everything changes. It's about creating long-term solutions that last. Okay, it's training yourself to, and again, I'm saying confident, but you choose what you want. Maybe you want to be more motivated, more focused, more sensitive to what's going on, more intuitive, happier, more relaxed, more calm. Again, it doesn't have to just be confident, but I want to take you through that so it can be a little more specific. And so you imagine how you would act if you felt confident. And now you want to imagine yourself, if I kept that up for the next 6 months, how would that affect my weight? If I was more confident, and you kind of bring yourself through a day of feeling confident, and you notice all the differences that would happen with your eating, you imagine them. And then you ask the next question, what would happen to me, over the next 6 months if I began eating this way? If that became the norm for me, right? And again, they kind of boost up the extra motivation for it, because it should be a profound difference, right? And then finally, what would be the effect on the quality of your life, right? How would the whole quality of your life change? You know what I mean? If you began living this way, and that's the ultimate goal here, is you becoming the person you want to be. So again, we put it all together this way. And now again, I'm using the word confident, but you can put whatever you want in there. But this is how you take it to the next level. And this is how it becomes a game changer, like life changing. You commit to feeling confident every day. Okay. So if confident is an emotion that would be a game changer for you in your life, if it would change your life, commit to it, right? So when I say commit to feeling confident every day, spend a couple minutes reinforcing that feeling of confidence. Walk around your house feeling confident. Do things that you can do just so you can reinforce what it feels like in real life. Tie your shoes and feel confident that you know how to do it, right? You practice feeling confident, just like as if it was a muscle, you're training yourself, right? You practice thinking confidently with basic things. Again, you don't have to work up to the restaurant, right? Maybe you work up to that because that's a big thing, but you start with simple things around the house. But I promise you this, you're building up. If you think of it as a muscle, you're building up this sense of confidence. You're building up this muscle. And just like a muscle, it takes on a life of its own. Okay? Because all the emotions do, don't they? And if you've been stuck in a rut, those negative emotions sure took on a life of their own. It works the same for both of them. It's just which ones are we giving energy to? The problem is we don't realize we're doing this with the things we regularly do because it becomes automatic. So again, you practice thinking confidently. Right? Talking to yourself confidently. You practice acting confidently. Again, you know how you move? It could be something simple. This is what I was talking about when I was imagining the painting thing just now. I was acting confident. I was painting with confidence. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't doing little tiny strokes. It was, again, I dip my brush. I know how to do it. It's not going to drip. I put it on right. So it could be simple things, but you want to practice acting confidently because you move differently when you're a confident person. So again, and again, you don't have to do this in front of people. You don't have to let anyone know you're doing this. Do it by yourself. Brush your teeth confidently. It doesn't matter. Talk to yourself confidently. No, get it. You know what I mean? Like, could you see that we're getting to the core of the issue? Because if you did this, right, and again, you appreciate the little wins, you do all this, but so far, right? Imagine you do the state elicitation technique every day. So you remember some time in your life when you were confident, you start stacking them up every day. You practice feeling confident. You walk around feeling confident. You think confidently to yourself. You start acting confidently, moving confidently. You talk to yourself in a confident way. You do that for a week and then go into that restaurant and don't even think about the restaurant. Don't even program yourself. It's going to be different because you're turning yourself into a different person, and a different you is not going to act the same way as the original you. even if you wanted to. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't believe me, just put me to the test. Okay. Just put it to the test and try it and let me know what happens. And again, you appreciate the little wins, right? Because that's part of being confident, right? You reflect on what's working and what's not, right? Again, it's not everything just works perfectly because you're confident. Some things work and some things don't, but you tweak them, right? And you recognize that process and you adjust and you start over again, right? This is what you do. And this gets to the core of it. And so you pick the emotions that it would help you the most. You know, you practice, like I said, one a week is great. A couple days on one, whatever jives for you. Okay. But it's fun. Because I'm telling you, and again, I don't have the time to explain all this in intricate detail, but it's the emotional fulfillment that you're looking for. And when you start feeling the emotions that you want to feel on a regular basis, you'll start to feel that because you'll start to feel the difference between the associated emotions and genuine real emotions. And it is a game changer. It changes things in a very profound way. Okay. So we will wrap it up here. And if you have any comments or questions, you can ask them. All right. You guys are awesome too, by the way, because I know Connie, you've been here for a while. You're always writing. So I'm glad. I appreciate the rest of you writing too. Let's see. Everything. If someone writing boredom, I'm just going to talk about that for a second because that's such a common one, right? And by the way, though, okay, so again, you want to recognize both sides of it. There's the emotions, the state that you're moving away from, right? You don't want to be bored anymore. You don't want to feel that, so you can use the food as a distraction. And so sometimes it's just literally just to get away from feeling bad, but then usually it's a combination. There's also some pleasure to it. The physical pleasure is obvious, but we want to recognize the emotional pleasure. And so what I mean by that is that food has absolutely turned into entertainment, and so if you recognize that you're using food for entertainment, it allows you to begin finding better ways to achieve that. And so, you can start to, the first thing is you can start to not be so hard on yourself. You're not eating all this food just because you're a bad person and you're looking to punish yourself. You're doing it because you're looking for, again, distraction, relief from the boredom, and you're looking for some entertainment, and it feels that way, right? But it's not really entertainment. And I can tell you this because if you actually just sat down, I always like this one for people that sit in front of the TV or the computer and eat a lot of food, thinking that it's entertaining, it's their reward, it's their kind of way of just feeling good. Notice that if you just ate that food at the table by yourself with no TV or computer, it is not that entertaining. Just eating by yourself. You know what I mean? So again, it's a fun way to kind of separate those two things. But boredom, again, it becomes, well, how do you want to feel? Well, I'd like to be entertained. I'd like to do something interesting. Great. What can you do that'd be more interesting, right, than just sitting in front of TV and eating? And you may not have an answer for it, right? It may know that I should have something better, but you may not have an answer for what is better. But don't give up on it. Keep seeking it out. What could be better for you? What is more genuinely emotionally satisfying than that? And that'll help you. Lonely. Okay. Oh, Susan, great. That's so good, right? Look at that. That's the switch I'm talking about. I don't want to be lonely anymore. You could spend literally your whole life saying, I don't want to be lonely anymore. I just don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be lonely. That can be the main way you describe this. But look at you. You switched around the next one. I want to feel more connected. Well, now we're in a whole different zone. Well, how could you feel more connected? Now, I don't know your situation. You could call friends. You could call family. If you have no friends or family, you could go volunteer someplace. You go join the Y. You could go, go to the library. It goes on and on. That's what I'm trying to say. But there's a huge difference between describing the situation as I don't want to be lonely and I want to feel more connected. And you could even go deeper into that. You know what I mean? I want to feel more connected in more detail. The more detail you go, the more you're kind of training yourself what to look for. And I think the more you increase the possibility that's going to happen. So that's a great work. And the other thing too, Susan, by the way, is I want to feel more connected. Stay with that. You may not come up with the answer in the next week, but that is such an important one that if you had to dedicate your life to it, it'd be worth it. Because when you find that answer, when you find that solution to feel more connected, it's going to be a game changer. It's going to change the entire quality of your life. All right. Walking into the garden changes how I feel. Exactly. By the way, that's what I mean. It's like you recognize what works for you. That's what you're doing. I swear, really, your ability to lose weight and maintain it comes down to the strategies that you've accumulated. And so the idea of like walking into a garden so you feel, more at peace or more relaxed or more calm, that is great. And so again, the more of those types of things you have, the better. The tension in my jaw relaxes and I actually breathe. So that's super too. Because again, there's these little micro movements when you recognize them. So I'll tell you, like for me, it's my shoulders and my stomach. I notice when I'm tense, that's where I store it. And everyone stores it a little differently. And so for me, it's like anytime I notice that tension, I instantly know the switches I can flip to get the fastest results. Relax my shoulders, relax my stomach, take a deep breath. And I've practiced that literally for over 20 years now. Can I go deeper than that if I kind of have more time and I can really do a whole process? Yeah. But if I'm in like, whatever, I'm in a meeting or something and I find myself being tense, I just do there's the quick one and the full one. And the quick one's a lot better than doing nothing. All right. So that's super. It's in your jaw. You hold tension in your jaw and probably in your stomach too, which is why you're not breathing. But you recognize now that you know where your kind of switches are. When you're feeling tense and you want to relax your jaw and take a deep breath. Okay. Can we commit to being happy? I will say this, the happy thing is interesting, and you can absolutely, if you dedicate yourself to it, without question, you can become happier without question. In the short term, while you're learning it, I would kind of change up, it's just moments of happiness because no one's happy all the time, pretty much. Okay. So again, what I would say here, just real simple, is spend some time with what you mean by that. Okay. Because again, the more you can articulate it, the better results you're going to get. All right. So, can we commit to being happy? Absolutely. At the very least, we can commit to being happier, and both are wins. Okay. Which means you're still going to feel sad, depressed, angry, and all the rest of it sometimes. Okay. So being happy doesn't mean that you're just always that way. Okay. Yeah. Great, Connie. Yeah. Confident. That's awesome that you remembered that. Right. And so you kind of tapped into that confidence. I went to a restaurant. I did very well. Super, Susan. That's great. And again, so by the way, Susan, remember this. So what we talked about tonight, and again, you don't have to use the word confidence, but what I will say is this: the restaurant thing's a big thing, right? With weight loss. So I would play that memory of when you went to the restaurant, you did really well. And I would say, what was the feeling? What was the state that you were in during that whole thing? Right. And I don't know, maybe it wasn't confidence. Maybe it was, let's just say, I don't know, I was calm. Well, let's just say calm. It doesn't matter what the word is, whatever the word is for you. I would go back and I would replay that. And so whatever the word is that you would kind of articulate, that's the way I felt, I would go back to that memory and I would play it through. So you can remember how you felt, what you did before, how you were thinking. Bliss. Oh, super. Okay. So you were feeling bliss. So again, what you want to do, the reason we do the state elicitation technique is it's kind of allowing you to kind of deconstruct it. What is bliss? Right? It's a word, but again, there's a physiology to it and there's a psychology to it. And so I would go back to that restaurant movie, that memory, and you're calling it bliss. And I would start that movie before you got to the restaurant, like an hour before you start the restaurant. This is really, really valuable. And I would kind of diagnose what is bliss. Right? Physiologically, how do I feel? How do I hold myself? How do I breathe? What's the energy in my body when I'm feeling bliss? And then psychologically, right? How do you feel psychologically? What are you thinking about? How are you thinking about the process? Okay. So all of these things, what is bliss? And again, the more you think about it, the more you're going to understand it and the more your ability to create it, at will. Okay. So that's super. And you had a lot of family around it. Okay. The family around is great. Okay. And so I get it, but you felt that bliss. And so the family helps make it, but sometimes the family may not always be around. And so again, you want to isolate that feeling a bit from just who was around. Okay. Cause I understand that one goes. So it's like, we don't be like, oh, as long as my family's around, everything's great. And I act great. But as soon as they're not around, I fall apart. We want to be careful of that. And we start to recognize, what does bliss feel like? And what are some other ways that you can feel bliss? And you may or may not have that answer right now, but start asking that question. I think preparing food for women especially can be entertaining. Yeah, definitely. Preparing food for sure can be entertaining. And you could turn, by the way, you can turn healthy food, preparing healthy food can be extra entertaining. There's extra bonuses to that. Yeah. Moving away versus moving toward. I'm not sure what that means. Cool. All right, everyone. Well, this is awesome. So think of what we were saying. And so, pick an emotion. Again, you can do it one of two ways. You can pick an emotion and kind of stick with it for the week. You can kind of hang out with it and really get in depth with it. Or you can just get used to doing this practice and just pick a different emotion each day. I've done both of them. And they're both fun. They're both practicing you on this skill. And again, it's a very practical skill. This is because when you can change your state, shift it from one to the other, it's really, really, really powerful. You're welcome, Lenore. Thank you. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed this call. We'll wrap it up now. Finish a little bit earlier than we have in the last couple of weeks. The rest of the calls shouldn't go, well, actually less than 7. There's a lot of strategies in there. I keep adding more and more. And by the way, like I said, I can't wait. This is fun redoing the course here, but I can't wait to get back to the regular weekly calls because I have a lot of stuff I can't wait to share with you. I've been reading some books and they're just blowing my mind. So I can't wait to share them. Sleep, relaxation, just stuff that's just profoundly, it's amazing stuff. So anyways, I can't wait. Yeah, the choice of more emotions. It's fun that way too, Connie, because it's like, it's just fun. You know what I mean? You just, depending on your mood, just pick a different emotion. And that's kind of cool. And again, here's a little bonus step. This isn't the most, the funnest thing to do. Sometimes you can do it with the negative emotions. And that's kind of interesting. If you take the negative emotions and you elicit them and you start to think about how you act and how you respond and how you hold yourself with the negative stuff, it's very interesting because you'll gain some awareness of it, because so often our negative emotions and our positive emotions, it's so unconscious and we're not even aware of how we're doing it. But, like literally, like we're using recipes to create these emotional states, right? There's a physiological recipe and a psychological recipe that create the states we're in. And so sometimes even when you recognize and play around the unresourceful ones, the ones we don't want, it helps you realize how you're doing it. And once you realize there's still a sense of control there. You know what I mean? You don't give up your power as much when you realize you're still, even the negative emotions you don't like, you're still manifesting and you're the one creating them. So yeah, again, use a different one. Oh, that's awesome, Lenore. Yeah. The celebrity voices, that's so good. I'm a big fan of that. It doesn't for internal dialogue voices. Yeah. Celebrity voices are great. It doesn't matter. Use anything at your disposal, anything that kind of works for you and fires you up. To that point, I had a client and he used to use Jimmy Stewart, because he kind of grew up with him. That was kind of a, he was a real cool kind of father figure type guy, And so, yeah, he used that voice. So yeah, it's great to use celebrity voices, because it makes you feel different. Again, there's kind of a recipe going on there. And so as you kind of dissect and break it down, you realize if you change one of those things, it changes the state. And so again, it gives you a lot more control, it gives you a lot more feeling of control, even when it's unresourceful. So, cool. All right, everyone, have a great week and talk to you next Tuesday. Good night.